The first time I heard her, I thought it was the wind slipping through the broken skylights of the scrapyard hangar. The place was a graveyard for forgotten machines. Rusted transport carts, cracked automaton shells, bent propellers, and half-melted engine cores stacked in crooked towers that scraped the ceiling beams. I spent most evenings there after my shift at the repair docks, salvaging parts the city no longer wanted. Metal didn't judge. Broken gears didn't whisper. They simply waited for patient hands. But that night, between the groan of hanging chains and the ticking of cooling steel, I heard it clearly. Nobody wants me. The voice was small, fragile, not carried on air, but spoken softly into it. I froze, wrench still in hand. The scrapyard sat beyond the industrial quarter of Blackridge, a place no child wandered into without losing something important. I stepped carefully between piles of scrap, boots crunching against shattered glass and bent screws. I don't burn right, the voice continued, barely louder than a breath. I don't fly right. I don't glow like the others. That was when I saw her. Curled inside the hollow frame of a dismantled cargo engine was a dragon hatchling no bigger than a toolbox. Her scales were pale, almost silver, but not the brilliant metallic sheen of noble dragon bloodlines. They were muted, like moonlight filtered through fog. One wing drooped slightly lower than the other, and faint cracks lined a few of her scales as if her growth had not come easily. She wasn't injured. She was neglected. Her eyes lifted when she noticed me. They weren't fierce. They weren't wild. They were tired. "I'll leave," she said quickly, shrinking deeper into the engine shell. "I won't steal parts. I just needed somewhere warm." The words hit harder than they should have. Dragons were not supposed to speak like that. They were legends, apex predators, sky rulers, not small creatures hiding in scrap heaps apologizing for existing. "I'm not here to chase you off," I said slowly, crouching down and setting my wrench aside. "What are you doing alone?" She hesitated. Her tail curled tighter around her body. "They said I'm defective," she whispered. "My flame sputters. My wings wobble. The broodmaster said I'll never guard the skies. So they left me near the city. Left me, like broken machinery." I glanced around the hangar at the piles of discarded engines and bent frames. Blackridge threw away anything that didn't perform perfectly. Machines, tools, people sometimes. I understood that too well. "Let me see your wing," I said gently. She flinched but didn't snap or hiss. Slowly, awkwardly, she unfolded it. The membrane wasn't torn, just unevenly stretched. One joint seemed stiff, likely from lack of proper movement rather than damage. I moved closer, careful and slow, the way I approached delicate engine cores. "I'm not going to hurt you," I murmured. "I fix things. That's what I do." Her eyes searched my face for something, mockery, maybe, or pity. I gave her neither, just focus. I examined the wing joints, running my fingers lightly along the bone structure. "You're not defective," I said after a moment. "You're undertrained." She blinked. "What?" "If you leave a machine sitting too long, parts stiffen. If you don't calibrate properly, it shakes. That doesn't mean it's broken. It means no one finished the work." She stared at me like I'd spoken impossible magic. "They didn't want to waste time," she whispered. Anger flickered in my chest. I swallowed it. Anger never fixed anything. Patience did. "Can you stand?" I asked. She nodded and awkwardly climbed out of the engine shell. Up close, she was even smaller than I thought. Undersized for her age, likely. But her claws were sharp. Her scales, though pale, shimmered faintly under the hanging work lights. "Show me your flame," I said. She looked embarrassed. Still, she inhaled deeply and let out a tiny puff. It sparked weakly, flickering sideways before dying into smoke. I crouched beside her. Again. "But don't force it." She tried once more. This time I watched the rhythm of her breathing. Too shallow. Too rushed. "Slow down," I guided. "Think of it like a furnace. Air first, then spark." She focused, brow furrowed in fierce concentration. Inhale. Pause. Controlled exhale. A steadier flame flickered out. Small, but stable. Her eyes widened. That wasn't broken, I said quietly. That was unbalanced. For the first time since I'd seen her, something shifted in her posture. Not confidence. Not yet. But curiosity. You'd fix me? She asked hesitantly. I looked at the mountains of discarded scrap around us. Then at the tiny dragon who had been treated like it. I don't fix people, I said. Or dragons. I work with them until they work properly themselves. She stepped closer cautiously. Why? It was a simple question. I didn't have a simple answer. Maybe because someone once stayed late to show me how to realign a warp drive shaft instead of calling me useless. Maybe because I knew what it felt like to be left behind when you didn't perform perfectly. Because someone should, I said finally. The wind rattled the broken skylights overhead. The scrapyard lights hummed. She looked up at me, hope warring with disbelief. Nobody ever chose me, she whispered. I reached out slowly and rested my hand against her small, cool-scaled shoulder. I just did. And in that moment, surrounded by discarded metal and forgotten machines, something fragile but powerful ignited. Not in her throat, but in her eyes. The next morning, I expected the hatchling to be gone. Blackridge was not kind to the small or the strange, and I assumed she would disappear before sunrise, convinced that kindness was a temporary malfunction. But when I pushed open the dented hangar door and stepped into the scrapyard with a thermos of burnt coffee in one hand, I heard the faint scraping of claws against metal. She was still there, perched on top of an overturned engine casing like a watchful gargoyle, pale scales catching the pale dawn light. You came back, she said almost accusingly. I work here, I replied, setting my tool bag down. And I don't quit halfway through a repair. She tilted her head. I'm not a repair. No, I agreed. You're a project. She seemed unsure whether that was better. I climbed onto a crate and gestured for her to come closer. She hesitated only a second before hopping down. Her landing was uneven. The weaker wing dipped, and she stumbled forward before catching herself. Frustration flared in her eyes, quick and hot. Easy, I said calmly. Show me the wing again. Up close in the daylight, I could see the imbalance more clearly. The muscles around her left wing joint were underdeveloped compared to the right. Not damaged, just neglected, like a machine part never lubricated. You favor one side, I said. You protect the weak one, so it never strengthens. They said it was pointless, she muttered. People say a lot of pointless things. I cleared a patch of ground and marked a rough circle with chalk. We start small. Stretching. Balance. No flying yet. Her ears, small ridges along the back of her head, flattened slightly. They laughed when I tried to train. I won't, I said simply. That seemed to matter more than anything else. For the next hour, we worked through controlled movements. Slow wing lifts, gradual rotations, careful holds. Every time her muscles trembled, she expected me to sigh in disappointment. Instead, I counted steadily, voice even. When she faltered, I adjusted her stance rather than scolding her. You're not weak, I told her when she slumped in exhaustion. You're unpracticed. That's the same thing, she grumbled. It's not. Weak means incapable. Unpracticed means you haven't had the chance yet. She stared at the chalk circle like it was some kind of sacred boundary. Why do you care? The question came again, sharper this time. Dragons were not used to kindness without transaction. I leaned back against a stack of rusted panels. Because someone once gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. She waited, expecting more. I didn't give it. Some stories didn't need telling to be understood. By midday, sweat clung to her scales, and her breathing had steadied into a stronger rhythm. When I asked her to try a short glide from a low crate, she hesitated only briefly. Don't force it, I reminded her. Balance first. She climbed up, spread her wings carefully, and pushed off. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't fast. But for 2 whole seconds, she stayed level before landing in a clumsy skid. Her eyes widened. You saw that? She asked. I did. I didn't tilt. You didn't. The smallest spark of pride flickered across her face, brighter than any flame she had managed so far. Then, without warning, a shadow passed over the scrapyard. She froze. Her pupils narrowed into sharp slits. High above, a massive silhouette circled once before disappearing behind the industrial smoke clouds. A full-grown dragon. Not hunting, observing. They're looking for you, I said quietly. They're looking to make sure I stay gone, she corrected. I studied her expression. There was fear there, yes, but also something else. A stubbornness that had not been fully crushed. What's your name? I asked suddenly. She blinked. They didn't give me one. Of course they hadn't. Why name something you intend to discard? I considered her pale scales, her quiet resilience, the way she endured each stretch without complaint. How about Frost? I offered. Not because you're cold. Because you endure. She tested the word under her breath. Frost. Fit. I like it, she said softly. Good. Then it's yours. The wind shifted, carrying distant mechanical noise from the city center. I knew the brood would not ignore her forever. Dragons valued strength, and what they had abandoned as weakness might soon become an embarrassment if it improved. You don't have to stay, I told her carefully. If they come for you, I won't trap you here. She looked up at me with something fierce and bright. You chose me. Yes. Then I choose to stay. The words landed heavier than any oath. That afternoon, we worked on controlled flame breathing. I adjusted her posture, showed her how to steady her diaphragm like bellows in a forge. This time, when she exhaled, the flame held for 3 steady seconds. Small but clean and focused. She laughed. It was a strange sound, raspy and used but genuine. For the first time since she had whispered that nobody wanted her, the scrapyard didn't feel like a graveyard of failures. Felt like a workshop. And as the sun dipped low and painted her pale scales in gold, I realized something important. She hadn't just needed training. She'd needed someone to see potential instead of flaw. And as she curled up near the warmth of a dismantled generator that night, not hiding, just resting, I understood that choosing her might carry consequences far beyond this yard of scrap. Because dragons did not forget. And if they came back, they would not see a discarded hatchling. They would see someone I had chosen. By the 3rd week, Frost no longer slept inside broken engines. She slept near the old generator in the center of the hangar, wings folded neatly instead of wrapped around herself in fear. The change was subtle, but I noticed it. She no longer flinched at every distant clang of metal or passing shadow. She moved through the scrapyard like it was territory she was beginning to understand, not a hiding place she had stolen. And her flame, small, steady, and precise, had grown into something controlled enough to light my work torch without sputtering. Again, I said one afternoon, standing back as she crouched atop a stack of reinforced crates. She rolled her shoulders the way I taught her, balanced her weight evenly, flexed both wings deliberately. I'm balanced, she muttered to herself. Good. Now trust it. She pushed off. This time she didn't wobble. She glided across nearly half the hangar before landing in a firm, controlled crouch. No stumble. No tilt. Her head snapped up toward me, eyes blazing with disbelief. I did it. You did, I confirmed. She let out a sharp, victorious chirp and flared her wings wide. The pale membranes caught the afternoon light, and for a second, she didn't look small or defective. She looked like something rare. Then the ground trembled. Not slightly, not distantly. It was a deep, resonant vibration that rattled chains and sent loose bolts skittering across the floor. Frost froze instantly, instinct screaming before logic could catch up. Outside, a massive shadow eclipsed the hangar entrance. Another tremor. Then a voice. Deep, resonant, ancient. Step away from the hatchling, human. Frost's claws dug into the crate beneath her. It's them, she whispered. I stepped forward anyway. Not aggressively, not challengingly. Just enough to place myself between her and the hangar doors. The adult dragon lowered its enormous head into view. Bronze scales lined with dark ridges. eyes sharp and assessing. Not enraged, controlled. Which somehow made it more dangerous. You harbor brood property, the dragon said evenly. Return her. She's not property, I replied. My voice didn't shake, though maybe it should have. She's Frost. The dragon's gaze flicked briefly toward her. She has no such name. She does now. A low rumble vibrated through the hangar. Not a roar. A warning. Frost trembled behind me. But she didn't retreat. I could feel her small presence, tense but standing. She was dismissed from the brood, the dragon continued. Unfit for aerial guard. Unstable flame control. Structural imbalance. She wasn't trained, I countered calmly. There's a difference. The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly. You presume to understand dragon development? I understand neglected mechanics, I said. And I understand potential wasted because it's inconvenient. Silence fell. Heavy. Pressing. Then the dragon shifted forward, forcing the hangar doors wider with a scrape of metal. Stand aside. Frost's breath quickened. I could hear it. Rapid. Panicked. I didn't move. If you think she's unstable, I said quietly, test her. The dragon paused. What? You're here to confirm she's unworthy, right? I continued. Then look at her now. Slowly, Frost stepped out from behind me. Every instinct in her small body must have screamed to hide. But she didn't. She stood in the open space between us and the towering dragon outside. Balanced stance, I murmured softly. She inhaled, steadying herself. Even weight. Wings aligned. Chin lifted. The adult dragon studied her posture. Flame control, I said gently. Frost focused. Deep inhale. Controlled exhale. A steady, narrow stream of flame extended 3 full feet before dissipating cleanly into the air. No sputter. No sideways flicker. The bronze dragon's expression didn't change, but something in its gaze sharpened. Glide, I instructed. She climbed onto the crate again. No hesitation this time. She pushed off and crossed the hangar smoothly, landing with precision. The silence afterward felt different, less dismissive, more calculating. She was not capable of that, the dragon said slowly. She is now. The dragon's massive head tilted slightly. You altered her? No, I replied. I trained her. Another long pause. Frost's voice came out small but clear. I am not defective. The bronze dragon's gaze locked onto her fully for the first time. Not as an embarrassment. Not as discarded brood. But as a developing entity. You were inefficient, the dragon corrected. Frost's claws tightened. But she didn't look away. I am improving. That did it. Something subtle shifted in the air. Not approval but acknowledgement. You have been marked by human influence, the dragon observed. I frowned. Marked? The dragon's eyes flicked to my right forearm. Heat flared suddenly beneath my sleeve. Sharp but not burning. I looked down and rolled the fabric back. There, faint but unmistakable, was a pattern beneath my skin. Pale lines shaped like branching frost veins, curving and interlocking in a design that almost resembled wings. Frost gasped softly. The bronze dragon exhaled slowly. A resonance mark. I didn't ask for it, I muttered. It was not asked for, the dragon replied. It formed through bond reinforcement. I looked at Frost. Bond. She stared at the mark with wide eyes. You chose me, she whispered. And she chose you, the bronze dragon finished. The realization settled like heavy iron. Dragons did not bond lightly. It was rare, ancient, binding. She is no longer dismissed brood, the dragon said at last. She is bonded. Frost straightened slightly at that word. Bonded. Not discarded. Not defective. The dragon studied me once more. You will be monitored, human. Figured as much. A final, assessing look passed between the adult dragon and the hatchling. Then, with a powerful beat of enormous wings, the bronze figure rose into the smoky sky and vanished beyond the industrial skyline. The tremors faded. The hangar settled. Frost turned to me slowly. "You're glowing." I looked at my arm again. The frost-like mark pulsed faintly before dimming to a subtle shimmer beneath the skin. "Great," I muttered. "Just what I needed." She stepped closer, eyes bright, not afraid this time. "You're mine," she said quietly. I snorted. "Let's clarify that. We're partners." She considered that, then nodded firmly. Partners. For the first time, when she flared her wings, it wasn't to prove herself. It was because she knew she belonged somewhere. And as I looked at the faint dragon mark etched into my skin, I understood something the bronze dragon hadn't needed to say aloud. This wasn't just training anymore. This was permanent. The mark did not fade. By the next morning, the pale frost veins along my forearm had deepened into something unmistakably deliberate, branching in intricate patterns that mirrored the structure of wings mid-flight. It didn't hurt, but it pulsed faintly whenever Frost practiced nearby, like a compass needle aligning toward its north. I tried wrapping it in cloth before heading into the city for work, but the warmth beneath the fabric reminded me it wasn't a scar. It was a connection. Frost watched me carefully as I adjusted my sleeve, her silver eyes thoughtful rather than frightened. "They will come again," she said quietly. "I know." She stepped closer, inspecting the mark as if it were a mechanical system she could decode. "Does it bind you?" "It doesn't control me," I answered. "And it doesn't control you. It's a bridge, not a chain." She seemed to like that explanation. Over the next few days, word spread faster than smoke in the upper air currents. I didn't know how dragons communicated across the city, but I began noticing silhouettes circling higher than before. Never landing, never interfering, just watching. Frost felt it too. Her movements sharpened. Her posture straightened. She no longer trained to prove herself worthy. She trained because she wanted to master what she was capable of becoming. One evening, just as the sky burned orange over Blackridge's smokestacks, the bronze dragon returned. But it did not come alone. 3 others hovered beyond the industrial rooftops, their enormous forms casting long shadows over the scrapyard. They did not roar or threaten. They simply observed. "They are council-bound," Frost whispered. "Elders." "Of course they are," I muttered. "No pressure." The bronze dragon landed with earth-shaking precision just outside the hangar. His gaze settled on me first, then on Frost. "The bond is stable," it said, "but it must be tested." Frost stiffened. I felt the mark on my arm warm in response. Not painfully, but alert. "Tested how?" I asked. "By stress," the dragon replied. "By choice." Before I could respond, a thunderous crack split the sky. Not dragon fire, something mechanical. A transport skimmer lost control above the industrial district, engine sputtering, smoke pouring from its core. It spiraled downward toward the refinery stacks beyond the scrapyard. If it hit, the explosion would level half the quarter. The elder dragons did not move. They watched. "Is that your test?" I demanded. "It is opportunity," the bronze dragon corrected. "Bonded pairs amplify under crisis." Frost was already staring at the falling skimmer, eyes wide but focused. "It will hit the fuel towers," she said. "I see it." Her wings flared instinctively. For a split second, doubt flickered across her face. The old fear, the old memory of failure. Then she looked at me. "Partners." I didn't hesitate. "You can glide that distance," I said quickly. "Not carry it, but redirect it. Flame at the engine intake. Short burst. Controlled." "And you?" she asked. "I'll stabilize from below." I grabbed a coil of industrial cable and sprinted toward the outer yard. The mark on my arm burned brighter as Frost launched into the air. Not clumsily, not desperately, but with power I had never seen from her before. She climbed fast, pale wings slicing clean arcs through smoke-stained air. The skimmer dipped dangerously, sparks trailing behind it. "Left thrusters failing," I shouted, though I knew she couldn't hear the words clearly at that height. The bond pulsed, instinct translating intent. She banked left without hesitation. She reached the skimmer just as it tilted nose first toward the refinery stacks. Hovering midair, she inhaled deeply, steady, measured. No panic. Then she released a focused stream of flame directly into the damaged intake. The controlled heat ignited residual fuel just enough to force the opposite thruster to compensate. The skimmer jerked violently, but it leveled. I anchored the cable to a reinforced scrap tower and launched the magnetic clamp upward as the vehicle descended within range. It caught the undercarriage with a metallic snap. I locked the brake mechanism just as the skimmer scraped across the yard instead of detonating against the fuel towers. Metal screamed. Sparks flew. But it stopped. Silence followed. Frost landed hard beside me, skidding but upright. Her breathing was heavy but even. Her wings held steady. The refinery stacks still stood. The bronze dragon stepped forward slowly, massive head lowering to study the halted wreckage. The other elders circled lower now, no longer distant silhouettes but imposing presences. Coordinated response. One of them rumbled. Instinctive synchronization, said another. Frost looked up at them. Not pleading, not shrinking. Standing. You redirected flame vector under pressure. The bronze dragon observed. Yes, she answered firmly. You balanced lift against downdraft instability. Yes. His gaze shifted to me. And you calculated human mechanics into dragon flight timing. I did, I replied evenly. A long pause followed. The elders exchanged low, resonant murmurs in a language too deep for me to understand, but Frost seemed to. Her posture did not waver. Finally, the bronze dragon spoke again. The hatchling designated Frost is no longer considered inefficient brood. Frost's tail twitched once, but she remained composed. She is recognized as adaptive. The word carried weight. More than praise. It was status. The dragon's eyes settled on my marked arm. And the human is acknowledged as bonded ally. Does that mean fewer surprise inspections? I asked dryly. A faint rumble, almost amusement, vibrated through the bronze dragon's chest. It means you are now within dragon protection parameters. I blinked. That's new. Frost looked at me, eyes brighter than I'd ever seen them. Not because she had been validated by the elders, but because she had proven something to herself. Nobody wants me, she had once whispered in the dark. Now, standing beneath circling elders and beside a saved refinery district, she no longer looked like discarded scrap. She looked like potential realized. As the dragons began to lift back into the smoky sky, the bronze dragon paused once more. The bond will deepen, it warned. Prepare for change. Define change, I muttered. But the dragon was already airborne. Frost stepped closer, glancing at the faintly glowing mark on my arm. Does it hurt? No, I said honestly. It feels aligned. She smiled, small but certain. Partners, she reminded me. I nodded. Partners. The scrapyard around us no longer felt like a place for discarded things. Felt like a beginning. And somewhere above the smoke of Blackridge, dragons who once dismissed her were now watching for a very different reason.